Hello everyone, I'm Eric Smith and I want to introduce you to a brand new series of videos that I'm doing called Reading the Movie. And what I want to do here is talk about movies and the books on which they are based. I'm going to compare and contrast and maybe introduce you to some books that you didn't know were the basis for movies. And uh, to that point, this first video is about Die Hard. More specifically, Die Hard and Die Hard 2, which for the rest of this video I will simply call Die Harder. Uh, Now, I doubt that I have to tell anybody what the movies are. um, I would say Die Hard is arguably the greatest action movie of all time, or at least the most popular action movie of all time. Um, I'm sure there are people who will disagree with me, but um, it's it's one of the biggies. It's Die Hard, um, and it's about a New York cop who goes to California to visit his wife during Christmas. Goes to her office, and some terrorists take over, um, and he has to take them on. um, I mean, what else do I have to say? We all know this movie. We all know John McClane and Yippee Ki Mr. Falcon, and Hans Gruber. Um, and then Die Hard 2, Die Harder. John McClane goes to an airport to pick up his wife, and terrorists take over the airport, and he has to take them on by himself. I mean, again, I'm pretty sure we all know these movies. But what I don't think a lot of people know is that these two movies are based on books. Now, interesting tidbit number one, and these interesting tidbits, at the very least, are interesting to me. I hope you find them interesting as well. But interesting tidbit number one, obviously the movies are based on two different books, but they are by two different authors with two different main characters. The books have absolutely nothing to do with each other. So Die Hard is based on a novel titled Nothing Lasts Forever. It's from 1979. It was written by Roderick Thorp. The main character is a New York cop named Joe Leland, and it's actually a sequel to a novel he had published in 1966 called The Detective, and I'm going to talk a bit about that a bit more in just a moment, because there's another interesting tidbit. But Die Harder is based on the novel 58 Minutes by Walter Wager. It was published in 1979. The main character's name is Frank Malone. Um, so again, they have nothing to do with each other. But first of all, I'm going to get back to that Nothing Lasts Forever being a sequel to The Detective. Uh, the Detective was made into a movie starring Frank Sinatra. I believe it was 1968. Um, so Frank Sinatra played the character, Joe Leland. I'm not sure if his name, I've never seen the movie The Detective, so I don't know if the character's name was Joe Leland in that movie. But apparently, because Sinatra played the character in The Detective, when they were making Die Hard, this is what I read, Fox was contractually obligated to offer the role to Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra could have been the star of Die Hard. Um, he turned it down. And then I also read that next up they offered it to Schwarzenegger as a potential sequel to Commando, which is kind of interesting to me. But obviously, it eventually went to Bruce Willis. They had to change the character's name, um, since it wasn't Frank Sinatra playing the part. Um, so to me, that's crazy that this movie could have starred Frank Sinatra instead of um, Bruce Willis, and an older Frank Sinatra. I mean, if The Detective came out in '68, that's uh, a decade, more than a decade between the two movies. So, well, I don't know. Still think he probably would have been a little too old if it had been the action, ended up being the action-packed movie that it is. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm not sure it would have been such an action movie if you had someone like Frank Sinatra in the role. I could be wrong. I don't know. It never happened. We'll have to find an alternate universe where they actually made this movie with Frank Sinatra. Um, so there's that. I find that fascinating. Then you have Die Harder. The title of the novel, 58 Minutes, comes from what the terrorist says. Of course, terrorists take over the airport. I believe it says there's 19 planes stranded in the air. And when the terrorist is making his demands, he says, essentially, you have 58 minutes until the first plane runs out of fuel. So that's where the title of the book comes from. Interesting tidbit number 2. Coincidentally, in both of these books, the main character is not going to see his wife, but his daughter. So in Nothing Lasts Forever, New York cop Joe Leland goes to California to visit his daughter at work. In 58 Minutes, I think he's a New York cop again, Frank Malone, goes to the airport to pick up his daughter. So I just thought, again, a weird coincidence that these two books that ended up being the basis for these two huge action movies, but the books are completely unrelated, happen to have this where it's the daughter instead of the wife. Again, just me. I find it interesting. Hopefully you do too. So there's that. As far as the books go, and this may be an issue with all of the videos in this series, it's been a long time since I have read either one of these books, so I don't remember a lot of detail. But I will tell you what little I do remember about reading the books. And mainly, what I remember is I liked 58 Minutes more than Nothing Lasts Forever. The Roderick Thorpe book, Nothing Lasts Forever, to me, I recall thinking it was a little dry. Not horribly written, not by any means the worst thing I've ever read. It just didn't, surprisingly, I didn't find it as compelling. Certainly not as compelling as the movie, and it's very close to the movie, but it felt dry. It felt padded, maybe. Bogged down, perhaps. Again, it's been so long since I've read it. This is more of my impression that I've held on to over the years than, I can't really get into the specifics of why I felt that way. That's just the impression that I got. 58 Minutes I found was much more compelling a read. Much more, I hate to say interesting, because they are both interesting. And they're both pretty close to, they're pretty good adaptations, the movies are, of both books. I liked 58 Minutes more than I liked Nothing Lasts Forever. I think the writing is just a little bit better, my opinion. I have not read anything else by either one of these authors. I read these because I happened to find out that they were the basis for these movies. I don't remember how I found out, but I did. So I went to the library and I got these books and I read them. And, these are the impressions that I had. Nothing Lasts Forever, a bit dry. 58 Minutes, much better. So there you have it. I mean, I really don't have that much more to say. Again, I don't have to say anything about the movies themselves because everybody knows and loves them. Or at least everybody knows and loves Die Hard. I think Die Harder gets some hate. I remember most of Die Hard. I haven't watched either one in quite a while. But Die Hard I've watched multiple times. Die Harder I've only seen a couple of times. And there's really only one scene that I remember from Die Harder. I love the scene. And that's when the terrorist tricks the pilot of a plane into thinking the ground is further away than it is and causes the plane to crash. I don't know why. I love that scene. Um, and I love William Sadler, who plays the head terrorist. Uh, I love that guy. And of course, it's Bruce Willis doing his John McClane. Um, but it's not, in my opinion, not nearly as good as the first Die Hard movie. Which, little switch there. Die Hard better than Die Harder. 58 minutes, the basis for Die Harder, better than Nothing Lasts Forever, the basis for Die Hard. Um, so there you have it. That's it. And this is the first episode of what will hopefully be uh, an ongoing series of videos reading the movie. Like all of my videos, the release schedule for this will be sporadic whenever I have the chance to do it, think of something. I have quite a few books in mind, book movie combos in mind already. I'm sure more will come to mind as time goes on. I may throw in some comic book stuff. Um, Not necessarily uh, comic book movies that are based on an ongoing series, but maybe those that are based on a mini series or a graphic novel or something a little more compact um, and specific. Uh, for example, if I had ever seen the movie Watchmen, I might do something like that. I've read the comic, never seen the movie. Maybe I'll have to watch it and then I can do a video on that. Um, but something like that as opposed to something like Iron Man, based on 50 years of comic books. Um, and I may do TV shows. Something like, again, not the greatest example because I read Under the Dome. I never watched the TV show. But there are. Can you hear that noise outside? I don't know what that is. Someone's hitting a sign or something. And it's very distracting. But what are you going to do? Anyway, so if there's a TV show based on a book, and I've both read the book and watched the show, I may do TV shows as well. But mainly, we're going to be talking about movies and the novels they're based on. I already know what the next one is going to be. So please um, comment below. Let me know if this is something that interests you. If you have any, as I always say, if you have any comments, questions, or corrections, put them in the comments below. Comments will be open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. But this is something I've been thinking about for a while, trying to find the time to do this, because it's something that interests me as a huge fan of movies, as a huge fan of books. Hopefully there's an audience for this sort of thing out there. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's any book movie combos that you'd be interested in hearing about. Let me know if there's specific types of information you would like to be given. You know, this was sort of a very general thing. I didn't talk too much about the movies because everybody's seen them. Just gave you a little bit about the books, my impressions. If you want more specifics, if there's something you're looking for, just let me know. If you just want to talk about these things or anything. Hey, you know what? I'm an open guy. We can talk about anything down in the comments below. I will have links for the books. There are newer editions of the books that are available. So I'm going to go ahead and throw those in the description below. So I'll have Amazon links for both Nothing Lasts Forever and 58 Minutes. I don't think I need to put links for the movies because you can find them anywhere and everybody's seen them anyway. But anyway, so links for the books in the description below. Please like, share, and subscribe. I need to come up with a new ending to differentiate this from the low budget review show, but I don't really have anything at the moment. So I'm gonna, at this point, go with the same thing I do over there on that series, and that's to say this has been Reading the Movie. I have been Eric Smith, and until next time, read more books.